I have 300 and plus books on my Goodreads want to read list. Originally, it was 312 and then it increased to 350, which shows my lack of control. But I have been doing a good job of reading through my TBR list off camera. My main goal is to get through the books that have been on there for the longest. For today's video, I wanted to do something fun and use a random number generator to pick what books I should read. On Goodreads, next to the book, it has a number. Not gonna lie, the number system is kind of weird. I don't know what's going on with the beginning of the list. We're gonna be using a number to really randomize the books that I'm going to be reading in this video because there are so many books on my list. Obviously, I don't know which one I want to choose and I'm a little bit scared. So the minimum is going to be 1, the maximum is 350. Let's generate the first book that we're going to be reading in this video. Okay, 197. Let's search for the book 197. I'm actually like so nervous. Okay. Oh, the first book that I'm going to be reading in today's video is called To Gaze Upon Wicked Gods by Molly X Chen. This cover looks absolutely beautiful. I love covers that are like this. It's a fantasy, or I guess a romantasy book. It's somewhat going to be an enemies to lovers. I will be honest, whenever I read these Goodreads summaries, I have no idea what's going on. So I'm going to read it and tell you guys what is gonna happen in it. This is why doing a random generator is good, because I don't think I would have picked this book otherwise, at least not right now. Guys, I am struggling. I made it 11% into this book and I'm gonna DNF it. I read the author note, which I found very interesting because it was about Unit 731 and Manchuria. So basically this whole book is about colonization. We have a main character who is Chinese, and China, or I guess the world that is equivalent to China, got invaded by the Romans, and they originally formed an alliance. It didn't really work out and basically they got colonized. Now, that whole premise is very interesting. Of course, I appreciate books that write topics like this, especially because it's very difficult. But I will say I'm not really a fan of the writing and the overall, I guess, message of the book. I haven't read the whole book, obviously, so I haven't really reached the romance part. However, it does seem like it's marketed as a enemies to lovers kind of romance, which just feels very weird for obvious reasons. And I read some reviews and the romance just doesn't seem good, and it seems like the relationship between the two leads, I guess, is very romanticized, which I'm not really a fan of, and I can't really comment too much about the whole romance aspect and the overall plot because obviously I haven't read the book. The issue that I have with it so far is honestly the writing. I don't know if I would describe it as flowery, but it feels very descriptive, and I'm all for descriptive scenes. I love being able to imagine this world in my head, but I feel like some of the descriptions are so useless. She would be walking down the street and she would be describing what's on the walls. I don't care what's on the walls, okay? Just get the plot moving. Oftentimes she would have this vague memory of her family and kind of what they did in the past, and I really don't like it when books do that. If you refer to something in the past, don't keep it a mystery. Just say that your father is a bad father, okay? Just say that this whole colonization changed him. But it gets implied, but it doesn't get fully confirmed until later on, which I feel like can lead the viewers to think a different thing. And honestly, it's not a really big important part of the story, but it does bother me a little bit. There's a lot of description scenes, not a lot of dialogue. She's only really talked to one person, and again, this one person that she talks to, she has these memories with him. She keeps referring back to their childhood and, oh, he was such a sweet little boy, but he's not anymore. It really grates on my nerves for some weird reason. The writing just makes it super hard for me to connect with the overall book. Honestly, it feels like my brain would just block everything out. Again, don't mind descriptive scenes, but I would like a balance between them two. It also mentions multiple times how people who went against the romance would get executed, which is something that is obvious and which you would expect to happen during a time like this. It just gets repeated throughout the 11% that I've read, when I feel like there shouldn't be a lot of emphasis placed onto it because it's kind of obvious that something like this would happen. I don't know. I'm already not loving it, and I don't really want to force myself to get into it. So we are going to pick our next book. I did end up removing some books from my want to read list, so now it's gone down to 342, which I think is pretty great. So we're gonna change the max to 342. Ooh, okay, number 90. Let's see. Ooh, so the next book is The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea. I'm a little bit nervous because I feel like this could be potentially a very similar book to this book. I have started reading this book and already it's making me feel very giddy, and I'm very excited to continue on with it. But it's based on the story of 𝐸𝐸, which I didn't realize that it was a real myth because I read a manhwa surrounding the same kind of story. So when I read it in this book, I was a little bit surprised. But the tale goes that every 100 years a bride has to be sacrificed to the sea god, and in this story it's 𝐸𝐸 who is chosen because she is beautiful. When she gets sacrificed, the rule is that on the boat that she's on, it can only be the bride, no other person, and no weapons. Our female lead, Mina, her brother ends up going with 𝐸𝐸 onto that boat because he's in love with her and he doesn't want her to be sacrificed alone. Mina ends up going onto that boat as well, and for the love of her brother, she sacrifices herself to the sea god. That all happens in one chapter, and so far I'm absolutely loving it, you guys. First of all, I really enjoy the writing. It's very descriptive but very simple to follow along, and I like the references that we get to her family and the whole idea of storytelling, and it feels more warm compared to gaze upon the wicked gods. As of right now, the romance is eating. We meet certain characters which they are so cute, so hopefully I will get to see them more later on. But in the beginning of the book, we get three, I guess, characters that we get introduced to alongside to the sea god, and I love two of the characters that kind of had this bickering thing going on. Now we are somewhat developing the romance with the red string of fate, and I'm kind of obsessed, you guys. I'm also really glad that this is a standalone because I thought it was going to be a series, so I checked it out on Goodreads. Thankfully it's a standalone because I need everything to happen in this one book, but that kind of makes me even more excited to read the book and to see where the plot goes. I literally finished this book in one day. I don't know what happened, man. I started reading it and then I just read the whole thing. It was super easy and fun to read. I was a little bit apprehensive going into it, especially because I DNF'd the book yesterday as well, but I loved it. It was such a fun book, and I'm glad that it's a standalone. I'm really glad. We need more fantasy standalones. Also, I changed my case. I don't know what happened last night. I was like, you know what? I want to change my case. I'm kind of sick of my old ones. So now I have this brown theme. This is my first time doing a brown theme. I literally saw this pop socket of my sister's phone case that she bought, and I was like, can I just take your pop socket? Because she was going to give it away, and she was like, yeah, but it's so cute. And this is what the case looks like now. It's very simple. Out of all of my cases, I think this is probably the most simple case, but let's get into the book. I did really enjoy this book, as I mentioned before, but I do have some issues with it. I really enjoy the premise of this world and the myth surrounding it, especially the lore of the spirit world. It's really interesting because Mina, who is the main character, prays to these gods and she has such strong faith in them, but once she enters the spirit world and actually meet these gods, her faith in them kind of wavers, but at the same time strengthens as she grows to learn more about this world and these gods. Her main goal is to obviously save her family and to save the human world, so the fact that the gods are not who she thinks they are is really disappointing to her. I loved reading about her dilemma with that. As I mentioned, I really like the romance. There were just so many subtle lines within the book that I love when romance are written to be very subtle. I don't like when there's an overwhelming amount of romance. I like it when the plot is the main focus and the romance is just kind of in the background. But I will be honest, I do think that I would have liked more focus on the romance because it's so subtle to the point where I kind of don't know where they fell in love with each other or how. There is this whole marriage of convenience aspect, and you can tell that in the beginning of the book, he doesn't really care for her, but over time you can see the little soft touches. Because it is so focused on the plot, I wanted more out of the romance. Although I liked the plot, in a way it did feel a little bit empty. I don't know exactly how to describe it, but especially with the ending, I didn't really like it because it's very open-ended, and it very much reminds me of the ending of a lot of historical Chinese dramas, which if you watch them, if you know, you know, because literally Chinese dramas, historical ones especially, have the worst ending ever. What even is that? As I mentioned, I really wanted more of the romance. I wanted more of them together, even though I did like the dynamic in the book. I also did really like a lot of the side characters. I feel like they were well written, especially the relationships that they had with the main character. And it's so funny because there was this whole reveal, I would say, where I kind of saw it coming in a way, but also not really. But then that just touched my heart a little more, and then I was like, oh. But definitely, I do recommend reading it. I really, really enjoyed it, and I cannot wait to read more of 𝐸𝐸𝐬𝐻's books. It's funny because I think I've read one of her books before, and it was a K-pop book, and I didn't really like that because it is a K-pop book. But her new fantasy release is part of my anticipated releases, so I'm probably going to pick that up soon. Now we're going to be picking our next book, which I'm actually having a lot of fun with this video. Honestly, I want to do this again. I will probably make a bunch of videos doing this until my TBR goes down, because it is so fun to have a random generator pick a book for you rather than me picking it myself, because I am very indecisive, and how am I supposed to pick a book? I don't know which one to pick, so this really, really helps me. So on my want to read list, we obviously have 341 books right now, so I'm going to change the maximum to 341, and we're going to generate 194. Wasn't 194 really similar to the last number? Should I re-roll it? I don't know. Okay, let's look. What is 194? Ooh. Okay, guys. I'm not reading 194. 194 is the 𝐜𝐸𝐬𝐻 season, volume 4. I'm not reading the 𝐜𝐸𝐬𝐻 season until the whole volumes are out, because I'm not risking it. I read the first 3 volumes and I was already going through it, okay? I was already crying. Well, not crying, I was upset, okay? So I don't want to read that just yet. So we're gonna generate another number. 1112. Okay, what is 1112? Okay, 112 is the Midnight Library. I'm glad because this is a totally different, not genre I guess, because it is fantasy, but it's not based on East Asian mythology. Let's see what this book is about, because it's on my TBR list, but honestly, sometimes I just add books to my TBR list. I don't even know what they're about, but I am excited to start it. I finished reading The Midnight Library, and although I really like the premise behind it and the whole message, it didn't really have a huge impact on me. I felt like it was supposed to, but honestly, I felt like Nora's character was a little bit bland, a little bit boring, and because of that, I wasn't really invested in her story and her multiple lives. Her lives were really interesting though, but I don't know, I just couldn't really connect to her as a character. Because of that, I didn't feel that much for her. I did really enjoy this book though. It just isn't a book that I would pick up again, unfortunately. Obviously, we're going to be picking our next book, and we are now on to 338 books, because I think I read some books off camera. So from 341 to 338, and let's see what book we are reading next. 254. Wow. Okay, that's pretty far down, I think. 254 may end up being a book that I'm not going to read as of right now. Okay. Yep, 254. The 𝐜𝐸𝐬𝐻 season, volume 4. Volume 9. Yeah, I'm not reading that. Sorry. Let's regenerate it. The generator really favors the 𝐜𝐸𝐬𝐻 season. It's telling me to read it, but not right now. 204. Let's see. The thing is, the books at the very end of my want to read list are most likely to be Dharma books, which is why I say the lower it is, it may not be that great. Oh, okay, so 204 is the 𝐸∞ Society. Oh, this is actually a graphic novel. Okay, I may read it on my books, but I'm very excited. I think the cover is super cute. The title, the 𝐸∞ Society. Look at the cover. It's so cute. It seems to be a middle grade fantasy queer graphic novel, which is a lot of things in one book. But I'm really excited because the cover itself looks so cute, and I just have a feeling that the inside will be equally as adorable. I finished reading the 𝐸∞ Society and it was a really cute graphic novel. It's actually quite short, so I managed to finish it quickly, and it's also part of a trilogy. So I just decided, you know what, I'm just gonna read the whole trilogy. Might as well, because they're so short, I could finish them in just a day. The story is quite simple, but the art is so adorable, and we have these different tea dragons where basically you raise these dragons and you can pluck their leaves and make tea out of it. That's the whole premise of the book, and we also have other fantasy elements, but it was really such an adorable graphic novel. I read it on my books, so the color wasn't super bright, but obviously I could still see some color. However, I do think if I saw the book physically, it would look so much better. I love the use of different bright colors. It just felt so whimsical but so pretty, and the art genuinely is so good. It fits the vibe of the story so much. Anyways, that is the end for today's video. It's actually quite fun. I will probably try doing another video like this again, because having a random number generator pick the books that I read is so fun, because you don't know what to expect. It's surprising, and thankfully I did enjoy all the books that I read in this video besides the one that I DNF'd in the beginning. But there's a lot of books that I have to go through, so there are a lot of books that a random generator can pick. If you guys have a large TBR, you should also try this out. But thank you guys for watching this video. Please like, subscribe, and all that jazz, and I will see you guys in another one. Bye!